Okay, so this is a very quick knowledge booster for Theme 2, Growing the Business. It's the GCSE Spec 2017, which is due to have the exam a week today. I'm not going to go through everything in massive detail, but I'm going to pick up on some of the key elements that students need to be aware of in preparation for the exam. Make sure that you use this video alongside any notes that you've got from me, and I will also, in the description below, I'll put links to the past papers, so if you didn't get them from me on Friday, you can use this and then have a go at some of the past papers to try and plug any gaps in knowledge that you've got. So just in order to get our brain in gear, what is the difference between a small business and a large business? If you've given that a little second to have a think about, you're probably thinking, hopefully, of lots of different things that could make the difference. For this exam, there are many different things to think about between small businesses and large businesses, but essentially what the Theme 2 exam is trying to get you to consider is expanding nationally, internationally and globally. Not businesses that are small sole traders or partnerships. It's trying to get you to think about businesses which were much bigger, medium and above, so minimum of sort of 250 employees, but expanding to businesses which operate on every continent around the world. We're talking about businesses now which are run by managers that operate on behalf of the owners, and in most cases those owners might be shareholders of the organisation. Businesses that are so big that they are no longer owned by one individual but owned by multiple owners through private limited companies or public limited companies and the sale of shares. As a result, the objectives of these businesses become much more profit driven. Your smaller business, one of the objectives for your smaller owner might be that they're looking to be more independent. They're looking to get satisfaction out of the business from a job well done, personal achievement. But for these larger businesses with multiple shareholders, they are driven much more by a profit motive, and as a result, due to the size and due to the volume of money that's being brought into the business, they have the potential to expand much more rapidly overseas. So when anyone who's been in my intervention before half term, we were talking about these small businesses who might want to use e-commerce, but it wouldn't be realistic for them to use e-commerce to sell anywhere around the world. So now we're talking about businesses where e-commerce and m-commerce will allow them to sell anywhere around the world because they've got the logistic capabilities to be able to get their products from the country where they're produced, which could be anywhere, and then get them to any of the consumers who might want to buy around the world. They have the capacity and the finance and the resource to be able to scale up their business in that way. So I'm going to take each part of the specification bit by bit. We're not going to cover every single bit. So if we take a look now at our next slide, we've got the growth slide. So growth is brand new to the 2017 specification. There's two types of growth that you need to be aware of. You need to be aware of organic growth and inorganic growth. Very, very quickly, organic growth can come in two forms: new products or new markets. So it's a business doing what it's always done traditionally, more of the same. If you're a technology business, more technology. If you're a food business, more food. But essentially, it will be businesses who will either change the products that they currently sell in order to grow, meet new customer needs, or they will look for new markets. Now, that might mean as simply as just trying to sell the product, so changing the marketing mix. Maybe you've got a fantastic idea, but you think that actually older people or younger people or richer people or poorer people are currently not choosing to buy, so maybe you just promote the product in a different way. That could get you to a new market. Alternatively, you take the product that already works in England and you sell it in the USA. That would allow you to reach those new markets. As a result of this is much, much lower risk than inorganic growth. You've already got a proven track record. If your product sells in one country, why shouldn't it sell necessarily in another? If you can make technology products, why shouldn't you be able to change them slightly and make even better technology products? As a result, you're more likely to succeed. So hopefully here you can see, if you're asked in the exam, explain one advantage of organic growth, you've got one of these three markers already written there. I also like the idea of organic growth leading to vision growing with you. when you talk to or listen to people who've set up businesses, particularly big businesses, one of the things that they will talk about is how the vision and the culture within an organisation grows. Now, when you set up a business, you have an idea about the way that you want it to run, what it stands for, how you expect your workers to behave. With organic growth, as that business grows, the new staff that come and work for you, they are integrated into this organisation. So they will work in the way that you expect them to do. They will start and quickly learn from the other people there how things are expected to be done within your organisation. As a result, when it comes to them making decisions, they know what basis they're making their decisions on, the identity, the ideas behind the organisation, which lead into them making easier decisions. And quicker decisions is really straightforward for them. It is quite a slow method of growth. As a result, competitors may enter the market first and you may struggle to gain market share. So if you are waiting for your products to be successful in one country before you start to try and grow, or if you are taking one market at a time, so starting off in England, then moving to France and Italy and Germany, etc., this can be quite a slow process. And don't expect that somebody won't have already copied your idea or done it in a slightly different way and already set up in the market that you're hoping to go to, or looked at a product that you've made and gone, oh, we could make it even better, and have already developed that new product before you. Inorganic growth, this is either a merger or a takeover. The specification's very, very clear about this. So it's either two businesses coming together to run as one, the merger, or one business taking a dominant position and assuming control of the other. Really, really good mergers and takeovers for this rapid growth. You can grow, double the size of your business overnight. You can double the number of countries you're selling in overnight. You can increase massively very, very quickly. As a result of this, you can use this size to control suppliers. By becoming a much, much larger organisation, you have the ability to buy any of the supplies that you currently buy, probably cheaper, because you've got greater buying power. So your suppliers, whether they be gas, electricity, insurance, whatever it might be, are more likely to offer you a favourable rate because you've grown in size significantly. And as a result, you can reduce costs. Whether it's a merger or a takeover, you definitely don't need two headquarters, so you are likely to reduce costs by reducing duplication. You don't need two sets of finance offices, you don't need two IT departments, so you will reduce the number of staff that work within the organisation and then start to use that money elsewhere. You can redirect that resources. So maybe you reduce the finance departments, get rid of one of the finance departments from one of the organisations, so you only need half the number, and then you put that resource into developing new products in research and development. This can maybe lead your business to be more successful. One of the big disadvantages of inorganic growth, this mixing of cultures takes time. Either a merger or takeover often fail, and one of the reasons that they fail is because the organisations, the way, the vision, the identity, the way the two organisations have been run historically, don't mix together well, and as a result, decisions can get really slowed down. People aren't quite sure what they're supposed to be doing, the way they're supposed to make those decisions, and as a result, you can start to lose that competitive advantage. So I hope you see from this slide, I've really laid out lots of ways that you can develop answers into 3 or 6 markers, depending on what you might be asked by the examiner. Sources of finance. Again, it can quite easily come up. Sources of finance, this slide should pretty much explain everything that you really need to know. The new things that you need to consider for sources of finance for the larger organisations is that it's easier to use share capital. So share capital is the big add-on from theme 1. Share capital is an external source of finance, and it is a fantastic source of finance if you are trying to raise large sums of money. So if you are a public limited company, a PLC, you can raise millions of pounds by a share issue and selling share capital. It doesn't have to be paid back because people are investing into the business. As a result, this is fantastic if you're a tech business, if you are a business that requires a huge sum of money to move their business forward. However, coming back to this idea of decision making, once you started to increase the number of shareholders, the number of owners in the organisations, then you have to have annual general meetings. Decisions are made much more slowly because there's more people involved, more likely to be disagreement. So share capital is great for large sums of money, but bad for being able to make quick decisions and snappy decisions. So you'll hopefully be able to see that if you were ever asked that in a sort of evaluatory question or a justified question, the ability to say it's brilliant because, but actually it does have these drawbacks, then leads to a really easy evaluation about, well, it depends upon what the owners are after. Are they after large sums of money, or are they more concerned about being able to keep control of the decision making? Loan capital is the quickest of all these methods. You don't lose any control, but it can be quite expensive because you have to pay it back and you have to pay interest. Selling assets could be buildings, land, it could be machinery. You don't have to pay it back, so it's a very, very cheap method, and you don't lose any control over the business. But you can only sell these assets once, and taking them to selling assets can be quite a long process. If you're trying to sell a second-hand piece of machinery, is anyone actually going to want that machinery? If it's a piece of land that you don't want, does anyone else really want it? So trying to sell assets, although businesses may have them, sometimes trying to sell them can be very difficult. And retain profit. Remember, we're talking about big businesses here. Therefore, I know that at least one of the case studies that's come up in the sample assessment materials has been talking about a business that wasn't making a profit but was making quite a significant loss, and they were asking whether retained profits would be a good method. Look out for that sort of thing. If we're talking about technology, if we're talking about fashion, if we're talking about anything relating to big businesses, we're talking about big sums of money. Therefore, is retained profit likely to be any use? Well, it depends on whether the business is an Apple type organisation or a Google type organisation where they're sitting on billions of pounds worth of retained assets, retained profit, or whether they're an organisation which is still big but hasn't generated that retained profit. It can take quite a long time, therefore, to maybe get the profit, and as a result, by which time you've slowed the idea down, somebody else has already stolen it, and you've lost your competitive advantage. For theme 2 in the big businesses, sources of finance, is generally the questions will be around this idea of, are you trying to make a quick decision, in which case maybe loan capital, or trying to use some retained profit, or are you trying to make a decision which keeps control, in which case share capital is no good and maybe retained profit is better. So are you looking for large sums of money? Are you looking for control? Are you looking for things to be done quickly? They're the things that you need to keep in mind. But this slide, if gone over a few times to try and memorise, should give you enough to be able to answer any questions on sources of finance. Option 1, option 2. So this is a typical retained profit share capital type question, and I've only focused on this last bit on the sort of evaluation. If you were to get a question like this, on balance I would pick share capital as for a technology firm, that should say, not firm, sorry, a technology firm, it would allow them to raise significant finance. So I'm focusing on the idea that you'd pick it because it would help you raise a lot of money. However, the success of this method depends upon being able to gain agreement, or decisions may become slow. So this shows that whenever you're trying to develop that evaluation, if you've got one of these justify 9-mark option 1, option 2 questions, why is method 1 fantastic? Why is the second option fantastic? And then pick which one you want, but explain why there might be a drawback with it. I would say throughout the entire paper, everyone who's been taught by me knows, look out for tech, look out for fashion. And as I said on the previous slide, do they need money quickly? Do they need large sums? Do they have to cheap? These are the things which you need to be considering for these sources of finance questions. Okay, so e-commerce and m-commerce are, as I started off with, a real must for large businesses nowadays. With businesses having the ability to act on a global scale and use technology to expand, it would be a very, very unusual business, I would imagine, that wouldn't be using e-commerce and m-commerce in quite a large way nowadays. Moving a little bit further on, some of the other things that you need to be aware of in this 2.1 is imports. So buying products cheap from overseas. We're talking now about globalisation and some of the things that organisations need to consider. So one of the big things for organisations more recently is, where do you source your materials from? So places like China surprisingly, are becoming too expensive in places like Cambodia, where workers are paid even less than in China, are becoming more popular. And so we're starting to see that we're buying products from overseas, but businesses are moving round in order to get the best deal, the best products from the best countries at the best price in order to reduce their costs. Because if they can do this, they can either maximise their profit or reduce their prices, which should hopefully see an increase in market share. Exports is what a business chooses to sell overseas. For our little island of 68 million people, the internet has been a huge revelation for those who want to export, because Britain's got a great reputation for making products, for quality products, and as a result, it is possible now for businesses to be accessed by consumers. The 7 billion consumers on the planet can be accessed through the internet, through e-commerce, through m-commerce, and as a result the potential market for businesses has increased exponentially, and therefore the number of exports worldwide is also increasing. Location where the business is set up, well, not so long ago we had Dyson, who moved production from the UK and then decided to set up in Malaysia, I believe, because the labour was much cheaper. This therefore reduced the cost of the business. The cost of the Dyson Hoovers never came down, the vacuum cleaners never came down, and as a result Dyson must have saw a massive bumper rise in the profits. However, Dyson is building a new technology plant in the UK, is spending, I believe, over £1 billion trying to invest in the UK as well, because location, whilst you might sometimes be looking for cheaper labour, often you'll be looking for skilled labour as well. And one of the things that Dyson has obviously found and wants to bring back to the UK is this idea that within the UK there are some people who can be very innovative. Tariffs. If there's any sorts of questions on tariffs, then they're likely to be about the negative impact of tariffs. There are huge tariff wars with the US at the moment, and tariffs generally are unlikely to be a benefit to any organisation. A tariff is effectively a tax, and therefore for any business that is is impacted by a tariff, we will see their costs go up. As a result of costs going up, profit will go down, and therefore there isn't the money to invest in adverts or invest in new products, invest in growth. So any question on tariff is likely to be around costs going up, and so that sort of is written as a 3 marker. Trade blocks. There haven't been any trade block questions, and it is new to the specification. There's not been any trade block questions in the sample assessment materials or any of the mock papers that the exam board have put out. Trade blocks, we are currently just about within a trading block, which is the European Union. One of the major benefits that we get from being in the European Union is cross-border travel. There are no checks at custom borders. This means that we can trade anywhere within, if you are based anywhere in Europe, in the 28 countries, you can move your products freely across borders with no checks. As a result, this speeds the trades up. This reduces the costs, which means that the profit will go up. So trade within Europe and businesses within Europe are more likely to trade with each other. There are other trading blocks, such as NAFTA, which is over in North America and down to South America, including Mexico, and then ASEAN, which is over in Asia, and there's lots of different trading blocks around the world. I suspect if they are going to ask you about trading blocks, they'll probably give you quite a contextual answer through the case study, and it'll be a case of just being aware of what a trading block is. It's just a group of countries that agree that you can trade freely between each other. The major advantage being that you can get this speeding up of trade, reducing costs. One of the other advantages, which I don't have on this slide, and the big European Union advantage, is an agreement on standards. As a result, this can sort of raise the quality of products within the area and will stop the trading block receiving products from outside the area which are not of good quality, and you can set the standard of quality for the trading block. Ethics and the environment. I love teaching ethics and the environment because this is about doing what is morally right, and from a business point of view, businesses behave reprehensibly day in, day out, and the reason that they behave reprehensibly is because we do not care And when I say we, I include me. As much as we know about what's going on in the world and we understand what these organisations will do, we are often conflicted between knowing that a business isn't behaving in a particularly good way and enjoying their product that they sell. And as a result, we often, in our time-pressed lives, don't make good decisions which have a positive impact on the worldwide community. For businesses who are profit-driven, every ethical decision will come at a financial cost. McDonald's has changed straws from plastic to paper. Iceland has stopped using palm oil to make so that orangutans have got a habitat. However, this has cost them all. The development of the products that have replaced them, the other resources they've needed. As a result, the costs have increased for that organisation. The disadvantage of behaving ethically is it will cost you, the disadvantage of behaving ethically is it will cost you a lot of money. So for businesses, when they're thinking about whether to behave ethically or not, pressure groups come in. So pressure groups will either protest to try and stop sales, or they'll encourage the business directly to try and change. Either way, it will either increase costs if you make changes within the business, or if they manage to stop sales, then it will decrease revenue. And that's the point of the pressure group, to put the organisation in a position where it has to respond. The advantage of a business behaving ethically, if you behave better than everyone else, then what it should mean is you will get a competitive advantage. And there are some businesses out there. So, for example, Tom's, every time you buy a pair of shoes from Tom's, a pair of their espadrilles, they will give a pair of shoes to someone in the world who doesn't have anything on the feet. Equally, they do glasses, and they offer the same sort of deal. If you buy Tom's glasses, then they will provide eyesight or eye care to people around the world. As a result, they can charge £30, a premium price for a pair of espadrilles, which cost a few quid to make. That's the advantage of them behaving ethically. People like the smoothie organisation, whose name just escapes me now, but there are sort of health food drinks and organisations which behaving ethically means that they can charge a higher price. However, if you were asked to evaluate, should a business behave ethically? In short, no. Businesses are not there to worry about ethics or morals. That's not their responsibility. That's to be debated by philosophers and politicians who are to change legislation. Businesses are not supposed to behave ethically. Businesses are supposed to make decisions which maximise profit, particularly big businesses. That's why they exist. Their duty is to their shareholders, not to the worldwide population. As a result, the only decision that a large organisation should be making is, if we behave badly, will customers stop? If customers stop shopping with us, then we have to behave better. McDonald's doesn't want to sell paper straws. McDonald's would probably carry on selling plastic straws all day long if it could get away with it. But what it realises is, if it didn't make that change and incur the cost within it, then they would start to see a decrease in customers, and hence they've made the change. Equally, Coca-Cola and sugar-free drinks. Coca-Cola probably would have quite happily ploughed on, rotting everyone's teeth with sugar in their drinks. But what have they done? They've changed it. It's probably not because Coca-Cola wanted to spend millions of pounds developing new recipes, because that increases cost. But they've done it because if they didn't, then customers would stop buying Coca-Cola. And that's the only decision that businesses have to make around ethics and environment. If you do it, will it increase the number of customers or stop customers leaving? And if it will, then you make that decision. If, however, it costs an absolute fortune to fix and it has no impact on customers, don't do it. And a really, really good example of that would probably be the oil companies at the moment. The oil companies are spending almost nothing on renewables, and they are continuing to invest all of their money in digging up the remaining fossil fuels, creating massive protests in London. But what does it mean? The customers stop buying fuel to put in their cars? No. So should you make an ethical decision which will cost you more money, even though you're not going to see a decrease in customers? Don't make that decision. You don't do that. And therefore the oil companies are carrying on and not changing despite these massive protests. All of this is linked to the 4 Ps. And I know our 12 market in the last paper was about the 4 Ps too. Any decision that a business is going to make, so if we look at globalisation, if they start to behave more ethically, what impact will this have on the 4 Ps? Maybe you should promote it more, make sure people are aware. Maybe it'll mean that the product changes. Maybe it'll mean that the price of the product could go up. You might be able to charge a premium price, or maybe you might have to lower your price to entice customers in because maybe you're not behaving as ethically as you would have liked to. But also with globalisation, it feeds really into this place idea. If an organisation is using e-commerce or m-commerce, then it changes the place that it sells because it's not just a physical shop anymore. It's an electronic and an online location. Look out for any sort of connection to the marketing mix in the paper and consider how decisions that the business is making, which P does it link to if they are asking for a marketing mix question. Right, okay, 2.21. Here's the specification. Pause it, have a look at the bits that you need to have a look at. So we're looking here, we've got aesthetics, cost of production and function. This is the design mix, but just like the marketing mix, all three elements are important, and all three elements combined together help you create a quality design. The advantages of a quality design, and this question has come up again and again and again as a 3-marker, is you can charge a premium price, use this money to then increase profit, which will then be reinvested back into the business. Brand loyalty as well. Marks and Spencer's historically is known as a quality business, and therefore you generate brand loyalty because you know of your quality. This will lead to repeat purchase, which should lead to an increase in market share. Be aware of knowing how to answer a question or a 3-marker on quality design. We've got the marketing mix, and it's covered itself in 2.2. You need to be aware of what it means for price, product, place and promotion. However, the point of the marketing mix is to try and get yourself a competitive advantage. Do you do the mix better than other people's? Because this will mean that customers pick you rather than someone else. So things that the examiner normally wants to know about is impact of price increases, decreases, how does it affect customers being able to afford. The idea of changing price comes up again and again and again, so be prepared to write a 3-marker on what are the benefits of prices going up, what are the benefits of prices going down. The sample assessments that have been produced by the exam board are really focused on the idea of covering the marketing mix in these 9-mark option questions, and I'd be shocked if maybe another one didn't come up in the Theme 2 paper on Tuesday. And so they are likely to give you 2 options, such as lower prices or increase the speed of home delivery. So we're looking there at the ability, a place and also a price. Now, what this question has also got is, in order to improve its competitive advantage. So what it's asking is, in order for Argos to compete against Amazon, for example, should it lower prices or should it increase the speed of home delivery? Now, what you've got to look out for is this idea of a second part to the question. If you just wrote lower prices will work for Argos because increasing the speed of home delivery would work for Argos because, and then write a conclusion, you would score 0 because you haven't answered the question. The question is not saying would option 1 work or would option 2 work. They're saying which one would allow them to be more competitive. So look out for this double-parted question. So I think the next one as well that I picked out, this Netflix question. People, when we've done this in class, have talked about how new subscriptions would work. People have talked about how the range of films would work. However, the question isn't that. The question is, how would these work in allowing you to enter the Chinese market? The marketing mix, if they examine it, it isn't difficult to talk about. People who've answered this question and the previous question tend to do it really, really well. But what people miss is the idea of this extra element to the question. You have to be really, really mindful of that on next Tuesday, because the marketing mix is quite easy to talk about. So for me, the only way they can really differentiate the question from the examiner is to add in this extra element and say, how would lowering prices work in the business being able to gain more customers? Adding in that extra element says, answer the question and also talk about your knowledge of the marketing mix and really contextualize it. So you can have a look at these 2 questions and think about these and your knowledge of the marketing mix, but also think about this extra element which could be in the question. So 2.3, again, lots to think about in 2.3, and feel free to look and have a quick check off of the things you can and can't do. We've got job production, batch production and flow production. Our job production, obviously really, really important. Job production is the ability to make unique one-off items, great for making high value items, but it can be very slow and expensive to make one-off individuals. Our batch production, maybe we make some red boxes, then some green ones. Materials can start to be bought in larger quantities. It allows customers a bit of variety. Workers can become a bit demotivated because it's still very repetitious work, and the machinery might be more likely to break due to changes in production. Flow production, this is great for things like bottles of water. We just buy lots and lots of raw materials, the plastic, lots and lots of plastic to be able to make the lids and the bottles, and production can be 24 hours, 7 days a week, and bottle after bottle just coming off the line. And as a result of that, we can reduce the costs quite significantly of making the individual items. However, trying to get these factories set up can be incredibly expensive, and as a result our workers might become demotivated, bored, unproductive. I think whatever question that they do, if they do give you one about these types of production, they're going to have to give you some context behind it. What is the advantage of batch production for? What is the advantage of job production for? And give you a business to go with it in order for you to consider what are the advantages for that particular organisation. Just in case has come up historically a lot. So just in case is when we have raw materials which are available to make products just in case our customers demand them, or just in case our supplies don't arrive when we expect them to do. And there are some advantages and disadvantages which have been used as by the examiners before as the correct answers. So just in case is great for bulk discounts. So if we are buying more stock than we need, just in case we get an extra rush in demand, then this means we should be able to buy it significantly cheaper. Always going to be able to handle high demand, any emergencies, any stock that's needed that we weren't expecting, and as a result your brand will be protected. You should never run out of the products that your customers want. However, huge amounts of waste can come this way. Stock can come out of date very quickly. Again, that link to fashion and technology, look out for that in any case study. And the cost of looking after it is absolutely huge. For the people that I've taught, if you remember, we were looking at the Pound World video, and the millions of pounds that they were spending just on 20 odd pallets that were kept within a warehouse. The cost of storing stuff is astronomical, and therefore if you can get your suppliers to keep hold of the stock and only deliver it just when you need it, then that can actually reduce costs significantly. But with the just in case method, you're the person who has to look after it in your warehouses, insure it, have staff to keep an eye on it, the land and the warehouse itself. So incredibly expensive. Just in time, on the other hand, this is when the products turn up to you, or the raw materials turn up to you just when you need it. So we've talked before about organisations like Dell, where 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year, they're receiving deliveries from their suppliers at a maximum of every 2 hours based upon the orders that are coming in from their customers. You need lots of money to set up a system like that. It's for big businesses only to set up these just-in-time businesses. But as a result of that, you don't hold any stock. Your suppliers deliver just when you need it. It means that because you're not making lots of products until customers have ordered, if a customer wants it to be slightly different, then you can customize it and make it for them. And you're never going to get left with stock that's out of date or goes out of fashion. The disadvantages: if you suddenly get a rush in demand, you will not be able to meet that rush in demand, or it's very unlikely that you'll be able to. This could damage your brand, lead to a loss in profit. You need computer systems that will talk to each other. You cannot have someone sat on the phone all day trying to manage the supplies and the deliveries. It's automated computer systems talking to each other. You get an order through e-commerce, m-commerce, and the computer system at your organisation automatically communicates with your suppliers to get the deliveries moving. And as we've said, if you don't get this right, the damage to the brand can be absolutely significant. One supplier doesn't deliver when you need them to, the whole production process can potentially stop. And if you consider an organisation like Mini in Oxford, there is a new Mini car coming off the line every 63 seconds. Therefore, if your delivery from one of your suppliers is maybe delayed by 10 minutes, that's 10 cars that don't get made at an average cost of probably £15,000. So you may be talking a 10-minute delay is going to cost you £150,000 in production, possibly revenue. Absolutely huge numbers. Then quickly onto our quality control and quality assurance. So 2 different ways that we can try and manage the quality of our products. Quality assurance guarantees quality. It's built into the process, so we're checking every step of the way. If you remember making the hats, if it goes wrong at step 1, then step 2 passes it back to step 1. If it goes wrong at step 3 passes it back to step 2, and all the way along, the person who gets it next is checking every step and every process to make sure that when it's finished, it's absolutely perfect. You've got to do quality assurance for things like planes, anything where people's lives are at risk. You'd need to consider quality assurance. It's not a quick process to set up. It can take a while to guarantee the quality of products. But again, as we talked about before, if you get the quality of a product right, customers will pay a premium price and will also be repeat customers. In order to check quality, but cheaper and quicker method, you can do quality control. Check 1 in every 5, check 1 in every 10, just to make sure that something isn't going wrong in the process. However, if you get to the end and you check 1 in every 5 and the 5th one's defective and then the 10th one's defective, then you're going to have to go back and check everyone in between, because the chances are there's something gone massively wrong in the system, and that can lead to real costs for the organisation as they go through and check that process. 2.4, really quick one to talk about here. Memorise these. Okay. You're going to get some 2-mark calculations in the exam, which you're going to look at these calculations which haven't come up in the specification before. So, quick example for you. This would be a 2-marker. Sales revenue, cost of sales, gross profit. Can you calculate the gross profit margin? It would be worth 2 marks. If you want to have a go at this, you can pause it. This would be the answer. One thing though, this came before they started putting the units on the line. The bottom right hand corner here says do not award a mark if the correct unit is not stated. In the new exam paper now, the units are stated on the line, and therefore you will get your 2 marks anyway. But you do need to be able to do this style of calculation, so make sure that you are taking some time to memorise these. Remember, they're not assessing your mathematical ability. This is not the kind of maths that you're doing in your maths paper. You are performing at a much, much higher mathematical level. They are assessing your business knowledge and your understanding of business terms. And then finally, we're into 2.5. Okay, so we're looking at organisational structures, effective recruitment, and so on. Again, have a pause, have a look at some of the things that you can and can't do. All of this links back to this idea. This whole managing human resources is about trying to get the most out of your workforce. It links again and again and again to, can you get your staff to do the things that you want them to do? Can you get them to produce more in a smaller amount of time? Can you get them to produce better customer service, higher quality products? All of this, how you set up your organisation, how you recruit the staff, and how you train the staff should lead you to this ability of being able to motivate your workforce to work harder. So there are lots of different ways of working, and with the whole technology slant, which is with theme 2, it's very possible that they could ask questions about working from home, questions about people working part-time, temporary hours, etc. 4G and mobile technology has made the possibilities of working remotely, working from home, working more flexibly, much more possible. As a result of this, the increased flexibility that people can see in the workplace now should lead to massive increases in productivity. If people are allowed to work in much more the way that they want, then it should lead them to being more productive in the time that they are at work, or the hours that they are working, whether that be at home or in an office somewhere. As a result, businesses can potentially see massive reduction in costs, because you don't need as many staff, or whatever work they're producing, the unit costs for that will go down, and staff being more motivated. They're the big things that we get from these changes within the workplace. However, let's not kid ourselves that a lot of the reasons that these organisations are putting in place these flexible and temporary working practices are not for the workers, but to reduce costs generally. If we do allow workers not to work in the normal workplace, if we do allow workers to have a lot more flexibility, then we might find that our workers don't work so hard. If they're not being supervised, we might find that they are slower at making decisions or make poorer decisions because they're not being effectively supervised. This links into our spans of control, decentralized and centralized organizational structures, which I've not covered in this video because I think we did it a lot in lessons. But if you're not sure about that whole centralized and decentralized spans of control, make sure you go back and have a look at that as well. This was the most likely come up as a multiple choice question. When we're trying to recruit staff, there are a few pieces of documentation that we need. These are the ones which are listed on the specification. You need a person specification, which is specifically what type of person do you need, good at maths, has A levels, that sort of thing. The job description is a description of the job. So what is it that the person who will do the job will ultimately do? In order for them to apply for the job, they need to complete an application form, which is created by the organisation which is looking to recruit. And the curriculum vitae, or CV, is a document which many of you may well have created now, which is about you as an individual, and you might put that with your application form so the employers can make a decision about whether you're the right person for the job. Now, essentially, recruitment is really, really expensive. No matter who you're recruiting for, when you take on new staff, you have a lot of staff time from the people who already work in the organisation to create the adverts, to go through the applications, to run the interview process. And then when you take someone on, they're not going to work at 100% straight away. So there's this staff training that needs to take place to get them up to speed. All of this is expensive. But if you can avoid this and keep your staff, if you can just retain and not lose staff, then this means that the recruitment process whilst it'll always still need to be done, may become less important, and it will allow you to try and retain those staff that you've already got, which means you don't need to do as much recruitment. This will start to reduce costs. It means you won't be losing as much knowledge, and because you're not having staff who don't know how to do the job, productivity should remain high. So there's two things to consider when we're doing this, which is that recruitment, this is the process that you need to go to, but equally recruitment, unless you're growing, should hopefully be a last resort. Organisations that have high staff turnover, lots of staff leaving, is indicative of probably a place that not many people want to work. So whenever an organisation has a high staff turnover, it needs to consider why it's got the high staff turnover, because there is significant costs into recruiting staff. Training. The specification identifies formal, informal and ongoing training. Nothing too complicated about this. Formal training would be training which takes place in a classroom, maybe takes place outside of the workplace, where you are taught specifically about parts of your job. Informal would be you're just in the workplace and you ask a colleague next to you, how do I use the photocopier? That's informal training. How do I change the till roll in the till? That would be informal training. And so this goes on every single day in every single workplace. And then ongoing training is training which, as it says, is just constant for the worker. So there's you've learned how to do your job, so there's no more training available. It's recognising that staff constantly need to develop and there will be new things that they need to learn. This links to technology, really links to technology, because as new technology changes, then we need to keep training our staff. Doesn't matter what type of training, the next bullet point is really important. Training's expensive, but what it does is it makes people feel valued. As a result, more productive, less likely to leave. So in the long term, if you get training right, then you should save money because staff won't be leaving. But this idea of what's the advantage of training, what's the advantage of ongoing, informal, formal, whatever, the advantages of training generally is that we make staff happier because they feel more valued, they feel as if they're cared for by the organisation, they will work harder, you should see a reduction in costs for the organisation. Something which is a bit new for the specification is the appraisal and performance reviews. These are used by businesses to identify good and bad performers annually and can often be linked to bonuses. Most notably though, the reason that we do appraisals or performance reviews is to give staff targets. Now whether we like it or not, people respond to targets. If we say to someone, these are the 3 things that I want you to do this year, and you're really clear about what they are and they're achievable goals, then what you'll likely find is that workers will go out and meet those goals and meet those expectations. As a result, why do we do appraisals and performance reviews? We're trying to set targets, because we'll motivate staff and should see an increase in productivity, which should lead to an increase in reduced costs. Again, these questions are sure to come up in some of the sample assessments, so make sure you're prepared for something about this topic area. I think it's a little bit tricky because it's not something you guys will ever have experienced. It's sort of well out of your frame of reference, but performance review, just how well have you got in work that year? And then finally, this is where it all ties up, motivation. The importance of motivation in the workplace. There are 3 reasons to motivate staff: to attract employees, keep employees, or to increase productivity. And I've given you a 3 marker for each one of these. Now, it doesn't matter. Through all the sample and assessment methods, they've gone, what's the benefit of paying workers? What's the benefit of a bonus? What's the benefit of fringe benefits? What's the benefit of job rotation? Doesn't matter. It's always the same. It doesn't matter what method you use to try and motivate your staff. What you are trying to achieve is identical. You are either trying to get your staff motivated so that they work harder, which will reduce your costs, or you're trying to create happier workers so that they don't leave. This will reduce your costs. Or you're trying to create a happier place to work, which will attract new employees and bring in new ideas. And that is what the specification tells us. This is why you motivate staff. The method used is of no consequence whatsoever. And regardless of what they ask you in the exam about which method, explain the benefit of one of these methods, the benefit is always going to be the same. Whether it's job rotation, giving someone autonomy, it just doesn't matter. The outcome that you are trying to get from this is exactly the same. It will be one of these 3. So make sure that you're aware of the outcomes, the importance of motivation, why you're trying to motivate, because it is likely this will come up in some form. Also be aware of the methods that can be used. It would be really, really easy to ask a question, a justify question for 9 marks, saying should they use cash or should you use job rotation, which would be the best. And so you do need to know, and you need to be able to explain how each would work, what each is, but ultimately you can still use what's beneath it. So for example, job rotation is allowing staff to do different types of jobs on a weekly, monthly, however infrequent basis that the employer chooses. This should mean you've got happier workers, less likely to leave, reduced costs. Autonomy, giving people responsibility, okay, that should maybe motivate workers, increase productivity, reduce costs. Paying people more, remuneration, okay, that should motivate workers, increase productivity, reduce costs. Give someone a bonus, make them happier, less likely to leave, reduce costs. Doesn't matter which method that they're talking about, as long as you know what the methods are, have a rudimentary understanding of them, then you can apply any of these answers to any question on motivation. Right, I will see you all on Monday, the first Monday back after half term. I hope you find this video useful. Make sure you check out in the description for the links to the past papers, if anyone didn't pick them up on Friday.